Hi, welcome to the spring series of Spring Candida Detox webinar. This next 4 weeks will have a lot of information to keep you going. My name is Christy Berry and I'll be your host and help you today or this month with detoxing your body and getting the Candida under control. I'll also be the one that you'll be working with on behind the scenes with the chat in the client portal. So please join me there as well through Healthy. And that information came to you in the welcome email that you've already received. So make sure that you set up your account with Get Healthy, and you'll be able to ask questions there and journal your progress and anything else that might come up that we need to address. Sometimes I have to tweak a diet for a specific person for a reason or another because they have other health issues that they're considering, and so we'll be able to do that on the back end. But in general, the information that you're receiving for the Candida and Detox class will be beneficial for everyone. All right. Also, you will be getting emails with all of the information. You'll be linking through to your client portal in Healthy to be able to access the informational and educational materials that we'll be using as well. So it'll be real important for you to get that set up. We are going to ask you to hold your questions. We're not going to take a chat in the class while we're live because we are recording the class and we don't want personal information on the recording. The recording will eventually be put up on YouTube for you to look at as an opportunity to continue or to refresh what we learned during the class. And because it will be on a public forum, even though it'll be a private link, we don't want to share any personal information. So we'll try to address questions in the class, but not identify any specific person or any individuals. The other thing we ask is, because this is recorded and this is a paid class, we ask that you not share the link that you receive for the recorded class with anyone, just primarily because this, it is a paid for class. So that's private for you and your eyes only. We will be posting the program, the recorded links the recording up on YouTube. So that's where you'll be locating the recorded link. And finally, if you have any technical difficulties, feel free to get in touch with me and we'll see if we can work through them. All right? Okay, so I'd like to go ahead and share my screen with you so we can get started on the class, and it'll take me a second. We're going to share the desktop, share screen. You're going to see the Zoom link there for a second, and I'm going to turn on. There we go. Okay, so I knew it would take me a minute, but I'll get there. Okay, so I think we covered all of the housekeeping. So let's get started on what toxins are in the body. So toxins are chemicals that either enter the body or are found in the body. There are actually two different kinds, and we'll talk about them in a minute. Move this over. There we go. So we find toxins in the air. We find them in our food, our water sources, personal care products and beauty products. In our homes, we have toxins in our homes and in our body as a result of poor health or things that our body is doing. Now, here's a couple of thoughts. Food, water, air, we have to eat. We have to drink, we have to breathe. So the toxins are there. We can't avoid the toxins. And these toxins can include dental procedures and your makeup you put on your face and what you wash with. It can include constipation and the body reabsorbing toxins from our waste. There's a lot of places that the toxins can come from. These toxins can do harm in many ways. They can attack and damage cells or tissue in our bodies. They can attack the genetic materials that develop or create the DNA and damage our DNA. And that actually creates an inherited issue for the next generation if you have damage to the nucleus or to the cells of your DNA. So we want to really try to keep our body toxins under control. So as I said earlier, there are two types of toxins. The first type is toxins found inside of our body. These are called endogenous toxins. These are toxins like from the process of processing the food that we eat, toxins that we reabsorb, cell changes, cell die-off are all considered toxins. We can have toxins that are found outside of our body, such as viruses and things like that. The cause of toxins can cause a long list of health issues. They can cause damage to organs, bones, blood, tissues, nerves, and even the brain. Detoxifying allows our body to be clean again, and it cleanses. Our body's constantly detoxifying, whether we're trying to or not. It's always in the detox process. So detoxing ourselves, or giving our bodies the nutrients and the food and the help necessary to detox our body and to get health, to become healthy, is very important. There's lots and lots of detoxifying or detoxing information on the internet. Be very careful. A lot of this information is okay, but a lot of it can be very harmful. Don't go and drink a bunch of lemon and olive oil to detox your liver, because although, yes, lemons can help with detoxing the liver, going for days without eating and taking in oil and lemon can be very damaging as well. So you want to be really careful. And if you're not healthy enough to detox, you want to detox in the most natural way possible, rather than doing some of these strange things that they recommend on the internet. So let's look at the different exogenous types of toxins that are found outside of the human body that can cause us trouble. Of course, tap water is a number one. Many people don't realize that there is chlorine and fluoride in our tap water. Chlorine and fluoride can cause serious damage. Specifically, fluoride can inhibit the absorption of iodine for the thyroid to work. So a lot of people don't even know why their thyroid isn't working, and many times it's because of the fluorine in the water. Pesticides, smog, petrochemicals, coffee and tobacco, alcohol and sugar and food preservatives can all cause chemicals and toxins in the body. Pesticides, and I'll mention this, in the fall, I have to make sure that I detox in the fall, because in the fall, they defoliate the cotton in our area. And so the chemicals that they use, similar to Agent Orange, which was a defoliant, is in the air, and we breathe this, and it becomes toxic to our body, as it did to those in Vietnam when the soldiers there. So it's important for us to ensure that we detox our bodies when we know that we're being exposed. Viruses, heavy metals, we do a hair analysis for heavy metals, and the hair analysis many times comes back with high aluminum and high arsenic, which is used in rice production. Mercury, from having mercury fillings that's leaching into our body. There's a lead. Women that have a high amount of cancer many times are high in cadmium, which is carcinogenic. Viruses can be insect-borne viruses, or viruses that you might get from someone coughing in the office. Herpes or HIV are also viruses. So the body can get these things from outside, and they come in and they can really be very disruptive. Bacteria infections, salmonella, like food poisonings, or listeria. Strep is a bacterial infection. Staph is a bacterial infection. So those kinds of things come from outside the body. Sometimes they're in the body already, and we just are being overcome by them, and they show up as symptoms in the body. Parasites can come from uh, animal bites, from walking barefoot in the grass. You can get parasites if there's been some species or something there. So you want to be careful with that, eating a lot of sugar. Prescription medications sit in the liver, over-the-counter medications as well. Something that I had a client come and they said, well, I'm not toxic. I don't take any medications or anything like that. And we tested, and his liver was very toxic. And he says, well, I'm really healthy. And I said, do you take a lot of supplements? And he says, yeah, I take herbal supplements. And I said, well, sometimes the body can't identify the difference between an herbal supplement chemical and a medicine chemical. So if you really get down to thinking about, okay, the body still doesn't recognize it as anything other than something unusual, then although it may be beneficial on the front end, it isn't something you want to stay on for long term. So you want to make sure that you consider that herbals and over-the-counters can be just as toxic to your body as medications, prescription medications. So endogenous toxins are found in our human body. Many, many times, poor eating habits create this compromise in our digestive system, or we aren't able to get the nutrients necessary to metabolize our food, and it's insufficient. So we get toxins that build up in our body that are just naturally there. Poor eating habits, sometimes digestive deficiency, Candida. It's a naturally occurring yeasts in our body that's there to actually help us with digestion, but it can become elevated and become a problem, and that's one of the reasons that we're having this class. Elevated homocysteine levels. Homocysteine is an amino acid that's mostly derived from meat when we eat meat, but high levels in our body are associated with B12 and B6 deficiency or folate deficiency, and sometimes even kidney disease and heart issues. Uric acid levels can become elevated, and that becomes a toxin in the body. Usually the kidneys filter out uric acid, but if you have high levels, it increases the kidney stones. It can increase gout or crystals in your joints and tissues, and can be very debilitating if not kept under control. And finally, but probably one of the biggest problems with toxins is chronic stress. Chronic stress actually creates toxins in the body, creating oxidation, creating toxin levels becoming high, lowering our immune system, and not allowing our bodies to even manage the natural detoxing process. So these are all really important pieces that come from just our daily living and can cause a lot of toxins buildup in our body. So since we are talking about Candida, let's talk more specifically about Candida. So when we have an overgrowth of Candida, we can have tons of different symptoms. You can have one or two of these symptoms, or you might have a lot of these symptoms. So I just read through a couple of them that I find are more common than not, that you might find yourself in: obesity, weight gain, headaches, metabolically, digestion, increased belly fat or weight gain in your stomach, cravings for sugars, carbs, alcohol, dairy, vinegar, or sour foods, eating disorders, indigestion, reflux and heartburn, or gas and bloating, constipation, or even diarrhea. And I know that sounds strange, but we can go one way or the other, or we can go back and forth like with irritable bowel syndrome. Sometimes it can cause PMS or abnormal hormone balance, hypoglycemia, thrush, metabolic disorders, and even as debilitating as thyroid dysfunction. Headaches and migraines, it can cause sleep problems and night sweats, mood swings. Some people will say, oh, that's because I'm going through menopause, but sometimes people aren't there yet and they're having these mental or emotional imbalances. Anxiety, irritability, hyperactivity, brain fog, memory or memory retention problems, or attention problems, indecisiveness, confusion, sometimes learning disabilities, and sometimes as bad as depression. Chronic fatigue, muscle weakness or cramping, irregular heartbeat, cold hands and feet, poor immune system, which we'll talk about a little more at length in a minute, allergies, eczema, asthma, itchy nose, runny nose, sinus issues. Actually, Candida actually can increase the symptoms of sinus problems and allergies. Ear pain or itching, chronic joint pain. One of the gals that came to me a few years ago, she came to me with severe fibromyalgia pain, almost so debilitating. And we got the Candida under control, and almost all of her pain issues were gone from the fibromyalgia. So it can really cause a lot of issues. Fungal infections, if you have toe or finger fungus, a sense of floating or vibrating, low sex drive, impotence, painful intercourse, rectal and vaginal itching. I mean, the list can go on. But if you can see yourself in some of these items, you're probably a victim of the impact of too much Candida in the body. So let's find out what Candida is. Candida is a type of yeast or fungus. It lives in your mouth and your intestines to help you digest and absorb your food. So it's there for a reason. It's supposed to be there. Usually, good gut bacteria and your immune system keep it in check. But sometimes the balance is disrupted and the yeast begins to multiply, and it multiplies rapidly. If you've ever made homemade bread and you put a little bit of sugar and a little bit of water and your yeast into a bowl, you can see how fast it just grows. So when this happens, it's colonizing in your gut and it begins to damage the lining of your digestive tract. When it does that, it can then escape into your bloodstream, and it wreaks havoc on all parts of your body, not just your gut health. So there is an important role that your liver takes in detoxing as well. And so I want to talk about it because the Candida and the liver have a connection. And so we're going to talk about the liver's role in detoxing, and then we'll move on back to Candida. So the liver there's a process that your body goes through. The first is you eat your food. The digestive system begins to break your food down into small particles. Those small particles enter the bloodstream where they're supposed to, those molecules into the bloodstream from the stomach and the intestines, and they are routed to your liver for filtering. So the liver then separates the nutrients needed for your body, to your building blocks for your body, and from the waste chemicals that need to be removed from circulation. The liver converts things like amino acids into proteins to build lean muscle mass and enzymes. It produces bile that takes the waste and squirts it back out into your gallbladder and into your intestinal tract for you to digest fatty acids and to send it off to waste. Now, if you don't have a gallbladder, then the waste matter goes into your intestines. So you want to make sure that you're moving well, because you're going to need those wastes to move out quickly. We don't want them to stay in the gut. The liver also stores energy from sugar and the foods that we eat, and that energy is in the form of glycogen, which is later released as your body needs. And I'll tell you a little scenario. If you don't eat breakfast, many times the liver will come to a place, if you do that often, the liver will come to a place where it says, oh, I know you're not eating breakfast, so you need me to store for release in the morning. And so I'll give you a little story. My father didn't eat breakfast for years. I remember him just going for years and years and he never ate breakfast. And he developed diabetes in his 50s. And when he developed diabetes, the doctor said, well, you're sugar levels are always high in the morning after you fasted all night. And he said, did you, do you eat breakfast? And my dad was like, I haven't eaten breakfast for years. And the doctor said, well, that's what's happening. So the liver is storing the sugar, and it knows automatically that in the morning you're going to get up and start moving and you're going to need energy. But because you're not eating breakfast, it's going to release this glycogen that it has stored, waiting for you to need energy when you didn't eat. And so it becomes this natural habit. Well, now my dad has to eat breakfast, and his sugar, of course, is out of whack. And but the point that I'm making is that you need to eat breakfast. If you don't, your liver is going to start utilizing the sugar that it's stored up for you, and eventually it can lead to this generalized problem and possibly diabetes. So please make sure that you eat breakfast. The liver also works like a factory. So it's receiving and filtering and then repackaging substances for use in your body, or for safe removal if it's a toxic or a waste product. Out of the hundreds and hundreds, and as you see here, 500 vital functions, out of the hundreds and hundreds of functions that your liver performs, ensuring that toxins are safely removed from your body is like one of the most critical jobs that it has. Toxins enter your body when you're exposed, as we talked earlier, to chemicals or through the natural processes that your body goes through, digesting protein, ammonia released in your liver converts it. There's just a lot of different things, and waste in your liver that your liver can't use, then are converted and carried out through the bile or into your intestines, or is carried through your blood into the kidneys to be refiltered. So there's just a real need for the liver to be healthy so that you can detox properly. And you can detox all the time because that's its job. It's doing this all the time. But something really important to know. It takes 6 weeks for every cell in your liver to regenerate. That means that if you give your liver detoxifying foods, healthy foods, and you work really hard at getting the toxins under control for 6 weeks, you have a brand new, clean liver. It's that easy, but you've got to do the things necessary in order for your liver to get healthy. And if you continue putting those toxins into your body, then those toxins will keep interfering with the function of the detoxing function that the liver has. So you want to make sure that you're giving it every support possible and that you get through a full 6 weeks of healthy, clean eating so that your liver can be a brand new, clean, functioning liver for the summer, and you can be a healthy person. So let's talk about how Candida and the liver work together. And this is really a vicious cycle. Candida overgrows in our body. It disrupts our liver function, and the liver is supposed to help build and support our immune system. When that happens, it's compromised. The immune system is compromised. When our immune system is compromised, then that promotes Candida growth. It has been said that anywhere from 60 to 80% of our immune system lies in our gut. If our gut is not healthy, Candida overgrowth, our immune system is compromised. If our liver function is disrupted, which is what Candida does when it becomes systemic, then it can't support the immune system. Can you see how this can be a vicious cycle for our bodies? So what do we do? All right. We'll talk about what we can do in a minute. I've got a couple more things to discuss. There is a connection between Candida and iron. This is a real complicated one, and I'm going to try to explain it as simple as possible. Iron in our body naturally improves our immune function. It helps to manage Candida as well. Well, the iron helps the immune function, which in turn helps to manage our Candida. However, Candida uses free iron to grow. So this is how it works. our saliva, tears, and vagina produce a protein called lactoferrin. Lactoferrin binds with free iron when we're chewing our food. It binds with the free iron and prevents the yeast from being able to use it and allows it to be bioavailable for us. When the iron in our food mixes, Candida can't access it, and it goes into our gut and is absorbed appropriately and used as we have need for it. So, why is that a problem? And how do we have free Candida that the Candida can, or free iron that the Candida can use? So here's what happens. If you take an iron supplement, or if you've been seen as being anemic, it may be that the Candida is eating your iron, even if you're eating a lot of iron fortified foods. That could be what's causing some of your issues. So if you take an iron supplement, it's not mixing with the lactoferrin that your saliva produces, because you're not chewing your supplement. Okay, you're just taking it. That puts free iron in your gut. That free iron is available then for the Candida to use to grow. So now, instead of improving our gut function, our immune system, managing the Candida, we're actually feeding the Candida, and we're feeding it with iron supplements. So it's much better to use food and to use it properly to rebuild our iron than it is to use supplements for our iron, because it in turn then feeds the Candida, which we're trying to get rid of. All right, so a little complicated, but definitely a concern for a lot of people. One last thing, stress. There is a huge connection between Candida and stress. Stress doesn't have to be emotional. It can be physical, mental, or emotional. We have something there's something that I call paper tigers. Now, in real life, you see a tiger and your adrenal glands produce a release of adrenaline. This is called fight or flight. That adrenaline then allows us to, fight or run as quickly as possible to get away from the tiger. Well, then it's a quick one. It goes up and it goes down and it's done. But you have to keep running from the tiger. So then the adrenals in the body produces something called cortisol, and it comes up, it levels up, and it goes up here at this level so that you can keep running from the tiger. Okay, this release of cortisol then also activates is also very highly inflammatory to your body, and it activates your immune system. So there's a lot of things going on. So let's look. The cortisol comes up, it's inflammatory. The body then says the immune system is activated, and that way you can respond to things like wounds or injuries. But once it's released, it actually works then on top of that to suppress your immune system, because your body knows that having an elevated immune system or elevated inflammation is not healthy. So it begins to then suppress your immune system. And because a high level of inflammation is not sustainable. And so to make up for that initial spike in inflammation, the cortisol returns your immune system to about 40 to 70% below what its baseline needs to be, and it leaves your immune system suppressed. When your immune system is suppressed, of course, now we're back to Candida has an opportunity to grow. But it also slows your digestive system. The second effect of stress is that it temporarily shuts down your digestive function. Of course, if you're really running from a tiger, you're not going to have time to stop and eat. It also suppresses a lot of your sexual hormones, which also can throw off some of your endocrine system as well. So there's a lot of things that are happening when you're stressed. But we don't run from tigers. I'm not running from a tiger. But I'm highly stressed because I have what I call those paper tigers. That's when that stress level comes up like this, and I'm here a long time. Chronic stress over a long period of time lowers your immune system, lowers your ability to manage the stress even more, and in the long run, keeps you from being able to keep the Candida under control. So you like my little funny there? I'm a little stressed right now, so just turn around and leave quietly and no one gets hurt. All right. So we can start today getting all of the Candida and the toxins under control. The second step after that is to rebuild our gut health so that we are healthy in our gut and we can use food to absorb nutrients. Once we have a healthy gut, we are healthy. At this point, if there are other health issues that haven't been resolved because your gut is healthy, then they're still hanging around, then we can begin to heal them with food. But the first step is to get the Candida and the toxins under control. All right? 50% or more of people that come through with health issues, 50% of their health issues are resolved once we get the gut healthy. So the first step, the next 6 weeks, you're going to spend these next 6 weeks working on getting the Candida and the toxins under control in your body. So conquering Candida. Working with Candida is a process. It doesn't happen overnight. There's a process. Through that process, we notice things like die-off. As we become, and that causes some other issues, then once our gut is improved, we start noticing we're feeling better. And then we have to learn how to watch for those symptoms again before it becomes overwhelming to our body. So then we look for cravings like sugars and carbs, and we look for a white coating on our tongue in order to avoid that return of the Candida overgrowth in our body. Here's a beautiful picture of a tongue, and I'll just point out a couple of things. You see the white coating, that's the Candida overgrowth. That's a systemic Candida infection, and we get the white coating taken care of, and this is a real bad example as far as this is a pretty overwhelmed body. Many times it's just at the back of the tongue and not all over the tongue, but this was easier for you to see, so I went ahead and used this picture. The center line of the tongue, you see the crack going down? That means this person is not absorbing nutrients, overall malabsorption of nutrients. And then there's some teeth marks which have other significant meanings for us, but we'll stick with just the white coating for today. All right, so first we have to talk about portions and proportions. So this is found on, let's see, myplate.gov. This is actually the recommendation for people that are diabetic. And I use that recommendation because it's the healthiest one, especially when we're trying to get Candida under control. So you can see here the amounts. And I use the hand explanation on the right hand side because I want you to see, you just using a plate, you could have a great big plate or you could have a little tiny plate, how much these are. So I want to talk about the meat, the protein. Many times people ask me, well, how much protein do I need? Well, 3 ounces of protein is plenty. And you can see there, it's in the palm of the hand. It's just a little tiny piece of meat. It's not 3 inches thick. It's just a little piece of meat on the palm of the hand. If it fits in the palm of the hand, that's about 3 ounces. And that's all the protein you need. Starch, a little bit more, not a whole lot more, maybe a little less if you, about the same amount of protein, about 3 ounces. You could probably go to 4, but let's try to keep those starches as whole starches, like whole grains. Vegetables, non-starchy vegetables would be like a whole 2 handfuls. You need a lot. 50%, we recommend 50% of your plate to be non-starchy vegetables. Fruit, again, about the same amount as the grains that you would be eating, as long as they're whole fruits and not desserts. And then your fats, about the size of a tablespoon, about a teaspoon to a tablespoon of fats. But that could also be your dairy, okay? If you're using whole dairy. So You can find that on myplate.gov, or you can go back and look at this again later. I do want to mention that there are some die-off symptoms that happen when you begin your detox process. And as the Candida is dying, there is a reaction called the Herxheimer reaction. Basically, there are metabolic byproducts that are released into the body, more toxins, when you are killing the Candida. As they die, they release these metabolic byproducts and create actually more toxins. So you actually will become more toxic while you're detoxing than you were before you started detoxing. So these toxins are released, as many as 79 different toxins, and they include things like ethanol, uric acid, and acetaldehyde. And just some interesting information, the Candida will eat the other Candida, causing it to grow even more. So you may feel worse as your immune system reacts to the toxins that your body is dumping. You may feel worse before you feel better. Usually this lasts for a couple of days. It can last a little bit longer if you decide not to use the yeast max that will recommend at the end of this class. All right. So some of the symptoms you might feel will be like flu-like symptoms, acne, skin rashes, vaginal itching, headaches, depression, anxiety, lethargy, insomnia, constipation. But I want to encourage you not to quit. Many times people at this stage, they just give up. They say, no, I can't do this. I feel worse than I did. Although the symptoms may be a signal from the body that you've got toxin buildup and you feel worse, many times you really need to say, I'm going to push through, because this may only last 2 or 3 days. Usually it only lasts 2 or 3 days, 4 at the max. If you take the yeast max and do some of the things I'm going to recommend in a minute, it'll help you get through these few days of feeling worse than you felt. But it's going to be really, really important. Your immune system is up in arms. It's inflamed. It's going crazy. It's like, I got to get rid of all of this extra toxins. And if you give up before you finish getting through this point, you're not going to be able to get the toxins under control. So push through, don't quit, don't give up. You can do this. Your body is just working really hard at getting the toxins under control, okay? And sometimes it gets worse before it gets better. Some people don't notice anything at all, so don't be afraid, just be aware, okay? And if you go online, you'll find that there's not a lot of Candida classes that are going to talk to you about the die-off symptoms, or Candida websites that talk about the die-off symptoms, but I really want you to be aware. You're going to not feel good, and then you'll feel better. But you got to get through that first jump start through the process. Okay. So some support tips to help you. Eat warm, pre-digested foods. For example, heat makes foods easier to digest. So choose cooked foods like soup instead of raw foods like salads to start with. If you plan to eat raw, make sure that your raw food is cultured and pre-digested through fermentation. Use cultured foods on your plate with every meal. And we're not quite to cultured foods yet, so we're going to talk a little bit more about it. But if you're already eating cultured or fermented foods, they contain a lot of good beneficial bacteria that help eat the yeast and take the yeast out of the body. And it soothes away inflammation as well. So those things are going to be really important for you. They're the good guys. And they help to process the metabolizing waste and get it out of your body. So consider some colon hydrotherapy, especially if you're not eliminating daily. I don't necessarily do the colonics. they're very stressful to the body, so I don't encourage them unless you're really struggling with elimination. But there are some natural herbs that you can use for elimination that are much easier on the body, not as stressful. So making sure that you're eliminating every day. Constipation can prolong the Herxheimer response because the waste and the toxins are in the gut, not coming out, and they get reabsorbed back into the body. So you want to make sure that you're eliminating daily. Twice a day is even better. Let's see, focus on antioxidants and liver support. So your liver transforms waste so that it can be eliminated. Antioxidants are like damage control. They sweep up the mess before it snowballs into free radical damage and inflammation. So things like cabbage and cauliflower and arugula and watercress are really high in antioxidants. Leafy greens support your liver, along with cilantro and other herbs that are dark green leafies. They're great liver support. Milk thistle, some people use that as a liver support as well. So continue to avoid sweets. Even the natural stuff, I have a lot of people say, well, can I have honey? It's natural and it has good bacteria. That's awesome. Stay away. It still will feed the exact organisms that we're trying to get rid of. It doesn't have enough of the probiotics, the good bacteria, to keep a systemic yeast infection under control. So you want to make sure that you stay away from all naturally sweet foods and other sweets, sugars, and things like that. Gently move your body. Get enough exercise that you work up a little bit of a sweat. You don't have to sweat a lot. You don't have to, I'm going to encourage you not to go out and run a marathon or do a lot of extraneous work, exercise, but get up, move, get some sweating going. Some people will go to the sauna to sweat out because sweat removes the toxins as well. Drink plenty of water. We're going to talk about water next week. Water is hugely important. Dehydration traps toxins in our body. It closes down the elimination channels, and so you need to stay hydrated. We encourage about 50% of your body weight in ounces every day. So if you weigh 200 pounds, 100 ounces of water is what you should take in every day. Excuse me. Practice deep breathing. Do some deep breathing techniques for those few days that you're not feeling well. That's also an excellent way of lowering stress and helping you manage through some of these first Herxheimer effect symptoms. Excuse me. All right, so let's get down to the diet. We're going to start with the Candida diet. You're going to be on this from 1 to 2 months, usually about 6 weeks. And remember, we talked about 6 weeks for your liver to be fully restored. I really encourage you to do this for at least 6 weeks. By the end of 1 month, you're going to be feeling much better, and you're going to notice a difference. If you can carry that out for another couple weeks just to keep your liver going, and then, you're going to be healthier all the way around, and you're going to want to stick with some of the things that we learned during this detox process. So one of the things that we recommend is Yeast Max. You can, the ordering information and details are in the materials that you received. It is not essential, but it will double time all of the steps that we're going to be taking in the process of Candida elimination. So it's a 15 days. It's a one-time buy, reasonably priced. It's 2 parts. There's a liquid part and some tablets that you take, and they're all natural, and they're very supportive of your body while you're going through the Candida cleanse. Not only kills the Candida, but it also helps with the die-off symptoms. So you may only notice 1 or 2 days of die-off symptoms if you use the Yeast Max. Probiotics are essential. So if you are already fermenting kefir, kombucha, fermented vegetables, lacto fermented vegetables, those types of things, then you won't have a need to buy a probiotic, but there is a probiotic that we recommend. Again, it's in the educational materials, and at the end of this series today, we'll talk about the the probiotics that we recommend. They're therapeutic grade and they're very highly effective. If you're already taking a probiotic, and we're going to talk a little bit more about probiotics, they may not be strong enough for you to get through the Candida process, the Candida cleansing process. So we'll talk about that a little bit later, I think next week. You have to eliminate all sugars in the first step. We're going to ask you to eliminate sugar, any kind of sugar, even fruits, for a minimum of 2 weeks, but probably for 4 weeks if you can. More for the processed sugars. We will be adding fruit back in the next 2 weeks, but we're going to be adding low glycemic fruits. So, and we'll be discussing all of that today and next week as well. Be sure that you have at least one daily substantial elimination and consume plenty of water. These are going to be really important steps to take while we're going through the process. Oh, so there is a sugar conversion chart. Let me see if I can get to it here real quick. Well, not too quick anyway. It's right here. There it is. And we're going to make this a little bit bigger. And we're going to talk a little bit about our foods. There we go. All right. You're going to get a 2-page paper in your informational material that has this list on it, and it's spread apart into 2 pages. I put it together in one chart to put on the refrigerator, so you can print this one up. This is the one that you can put on the fridge, but let me explain it to you a little bit. So each of these columns has a percentage at the top, and the percentage at the top shows the amount of the vegetables that convert into sugar. So the vegetables in the green column have a 3% conversion to sugar, low starch. They don't have a lot of sugar conversion. The 6% vegetables, of course, those are higher, 15, and then you can see the 20 or more are your high starch vegetables that convert to sugar a lot. A lot of them convert to sugar. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this. Let's look at the 3%. You can have unlimited in the 3% column. And the top part of this is vegetables. There are a couple of fruits in this list, which include avocado and tomato. You can have these unlimited. Protein, you can have unlimited. But when you get down here to the word cantaloupe, this is actually fruit. And you're not allowed to have these in the first 2 weeks at least. So this is delineated more succinctly in the Candida Protocol diet program that you have a copy of in your materials, in your printed materials. But you can have unlimited vegetables from the green column. You can see here, fruits, avocado and tomato, and you can have seeds, almonds, eggs, yogurt, kefir, and protein, meat protein. I will tell you to eliminate pork, as pork does cause some other issues. So back up, we'll look at the 6% column. Now you'll notice that in the 6, 15, and 20% column that there is a measurement. Under the green column, it's unlimited. Under the 6, 15, and 20% column, it is not. It is limited in your vegetables. So in the vegetables, you'll want to maintain the measurement for one serving. When we first start, I'm going to encourage you to keep the 15 and the 20% vegetables down to once or twice a week and eat mostly from the 3 and 6% vegetable column, because that way you're not feeding the yeast, you're not giving them anything to eat. And basically we're wanting to starve them to death. So now by the end of the 2nd week, I'm going to encourage you to add back. It'll be the 4th week if you don't use the yeast max. But if you're using the yeast max after the 2nd week, we're going to encourage you to add back 1 fruit a day. That 1 fruit a day can come from, we're going to recommend that 1 fruit a day come from the 3 and the 6% column. So that would include rhubarb, strawberries, watermelon, or other melons other than cantaloupe. Cantaloupe aren't allowed. They're high in sugar. green apple, apricots, not dried apricots. Dried fruits are really high in sugar. Blackberries, cranberries, guava, huckleberries, lemons, limes. Lemons and limes you can have unlimited, and we're gonna talk about a green drink later in this class, and you'll see that you can add lemons and limes to it. Oranges, papayas, peaches, plums, raspberries, tangerines, and kiwis. Okay, so in that column, I'm really going to encourage you to stay within the green and yellow column while you're adding one fruit serving back each day. And then after we complete the Candida diet, or after 4 weeks, you'll be able to go back to adding some of these 15 and 20% fruits daily, but we're going to ask you to try to limit those as much as possible. We don't want to increase the Candida back into our body, so you'll want to limit some of those. Now, at the bottom of this list, we have some additional information. Again, this is a refrigerator copy, and these are more explained in the educational material that you were sent. But we want to encourage you to manage the types of oils you use. Stay away from a lot of the high processed and hydrogenated oils, and use things like olive oil, flaxseed, avocado, almond, apricot, coconut, peanut, and macadamia oil. I use coconut for cooking. Avocado and olive oil I use more for cold items. The coconut oil, it does much better in heated than the olive oil. It doesn't change the molecular structure when you heat it. Seasonings, we're going to be really, really careful with our seasonings. Seasonings would include coconut amino acids for to replace soy sauce, Himalayan or sea salt, black or white pepper. You want to be careful with seasoning blends, because many times if your list on the back of your food says flavorings or seasonings or spices, they contain yeast and they contain starch, and many times they contain sugar. So you want to be careful with the word seasoning blends or flavorings or spices on the container if it doesn't tell you what's in it. You want to avoid vinegar. However, we're going to talk a little bit about apple cider vinegar. We're going to actually try to add that to our diet because it helps to manage. You want to try to avoid alcohol, milk substitutes, specifically if they have sugar added, anything with yeast in it, breads, and stuff like that, although there are some breads that you will be allowed to eat, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Organic dairy, if you can get it, goat or organic. Fruit juices, we want to stay away from fruit juices unless you, and fruits for at least the first couple of weeks. Vegetable juices, unless you juice them yourself. And we want to stay away from anything that is sugar related, malt, syrup, honey, molasses, and avoid soy sauce and tamarind and tamari. Okay, so long list. And there are things that are not on this list. And if you have a question, please feel free to ask me in the chat, because those questions I'll be able to answer in class. All right. So going back to our PowerPoint presentation, go back here if I can get there. Excuse me just a minute. There it is. Okay, so that was our sugar conversion chart, and I used that chart separately from the PowerPoint because it's very large and it doesn't fit in the PowerPoint presentation. So I'm sorry for that strange set of events. Okay, so let's look at fruit and simple carbs. We need to avoid the fruit and simple carbs at least for the first 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, if your white coating on your tongue and your cravings for sugar or carbs are gone, then we can add back 1 fruit serving per day. After 2 weeks, after that 2 weeks, again, if the coating and the cravings are gone, we can add back some simple carbs, but we want to manage the simple carbs no more than 3 servings a day if possible. And all of this is in your printed material, so you can read it and ask questions as you have them. So our simple carbs. On the paperwork, you'll see that there there are the simple carbs list on the second page. We want to limit these to 3 servings a day on the quantity or the serving that's listed in the list. Again, this is not an exhaustive list. It's just a set of examples. If you want to eat rice, if you eat white rice or pasta, we want to contain that to a half a cup of pasta or a half a cup of rice. However, if you use brown rice, white rice, or wild rice, you're able to eat a cup. So you can manage how much you're eating, or eat more if you eat a different type of rice because it's a full whole grain and not as processed. It doesn't convert as quickly. A slice of bread, any kind of bread is fine, but if you're going to eat a bagel or a croissant, you want to do about half of a bagel or half of a croissant. Corn tortillas, you can have 2 corn tortillas or 1 flour tortilla, the big wrap size if you want, for one of your 3 servings. If you eat cereal in the morning, a half a cup of cereal, either hot or cold, a half a cup of fruit. Now we know that right now we need to avoid the fruit and fruit juices, so we'll not use that right now, but then when we are able to add the fruit back, we want to try to keep it within that single serving. Popcorn, and you can see just a list of different items that you can eat. If you have a question about something that's not on this list, obviously it's not an exhaustive list, just give me a call or give me a chat in Healthy, and I'll be happy to help you with that. All right, so I'm going to give you a recipe for today. The recipe for today is a green drink recipe, and you have a full recipe in your full list of options in your recorded materials, but I sat down and I created a specific recipe that you can use right now that's going to actually help your process, as well as keep you from getting too much sweet in your drink, because we all want to add those sugars and we need to avoid those for at least the first 2 weeks. So my recommendation to help support your liver and your digestive system as you're working through this is to use celery, cucumber, cilantro. I use the 50/50 organic spring greens, fresh herbs of your choice, some liquid. You can use some juice, some like carrot juice. You want to make sure it's just a small amount. Some juiced vegetables from the list, or you can use another liquid like some of the liquids that are recommended, coconut water, and lemon or lime. And I'm going to really encourage the lime because it's really great for your liver and for supporting that. Avocado, you can also use that as part of your juice as well. Avocado, and then if you really need it to be sweetened, you can add some stevia. But you want to do this in a blender. You don't want to juice these things because you want to retain the enzymes and the fiber, because they help to increase cell alkalinity, and they also help with the digestion, because you want to make sure things are getting through you quickly. So this is a really good recipe. Most of the time people add a little bit of stevia on the front end because they're just not used to eating things that aren't sweet. And so we add a little stevia to sweeten it. Make sure you get the stevia from the store that doesn't have the maltodextrose in it, because the maltodextrose is a sugar and you want to be careful not to add sugars because it will feed the yeast. Okay, we can then add the fruit, the berries, the coconut water that's in the recipe. We can add those back later, but we want to avoid those at the front end because they're really high in sugar. After the white coating and the cravings are completely gone, then we can start adding back the higher sugar content items to our green drink, and then you can enjoy your green drink. And I actually like to add back when you start adding back, when you do beet greens, I use beet greens, but I also juice the beet and add that as a part of my liquid. And it's no longer a green drink, then it's a red drink. But it's really good and it's healthy, and beets are great for your liver. All right. So our goals for this week. First, get started. get started and don't quit. You can do this. It's just a short time. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and you will be so thankful at the end of this how good you feel and how much energy you've retained or gotten back after you get the Candida under control. It just likes to steal our energy. Create a green drink that you like. Try different ingredients to make it fit your palate. And work on it, and keep a little note and send me the information in your journal so I can see. Maybe take a picture of it and tell me what you've put in it, and we can share a little bit of that at an upcoming webinar. Try to have one big salad every day. I'm going to encourage you to use vinegar and oil only, but use Bragg's apple cider vinegar with the mother as your vinegar. Because we haven't learned how to make the fermented foods yet, and we'll have all kinds of salad dressing recipes then, but I don't want you to get too much sugar. Most of our salad dressings that we buy in the store are full of sugar, and the vinegar, and both of those feed the yeast, so we want to try to step back from that. Another option would be to use some hummus or something like that as your salad dressing. That's the way I like it. I like to use hummus for my salad dressing, but don't use too much, because the garbanzo beans, if you'll notice on your list, the garbanzo beans are actually in the 20% list, so you want to kind of keep those down to a small amount. Okay, so try to have a salad every day. Got to get those green vegetables in. Try to keep your portions and your proportions contained, okay? Remember our plate and how much to use, or our hands and how much to eat. Then love it. Now, we're not doing the Facebook page right now, but I would love it if you shared your recipes with me, and then I can share them on our Alabama Holistic Health Facebook page, or with me in the chat so that I can share them with the group next week. Would love to hear back. Okay, so one last thing. There are some resources listed for the supplements. If you haven't gotten those supplements already, I encourage you to do that. The recipes, there's a blog on our blog. There's a blog post on our blog that gives some resources for Candida diet recipes. If you're not sure what to cook or how to eat, there's about 4 different websites on that post that you can link to and get some great recipes. And as well as we'll be sharing some recipes here in the upcoming weeks. The supplements you can pick up at mpscript.com. The access code is ALHH, and you'll have to set up a profile there in order to utilize it and use it through Alabama Holistic Health, ALHH. You'll want to pick up Ultimate Flora Max 150. That's the probiotic. The Yeast Max, which is a kit. And if you're having constipation, Colon Max and Bowel Cleanse, and both of those are available as well through MP Scripts. You can have them delivered right to your door. And finally, make sure that you set up your client portal. It's really, really important for not just for accountability, but for you to be able to ask your questions and to get specific help in your situation. All right. Well, exciting. I'm excited for everyone getting going here, getting started, and we will see you all next week. Bye-bye.